You were told to save, get a good job, buy a house as soon as you could, and stick with one good company until retirement. It worked for your parent. Doing that today, you probably realized something feels a little off. The world changed, but a lot of financial advice didn't. Today, we're breaking advice just doesn't work anymore, and what actually does. Sure, some things are harder now, but the ability to build wealth and even do it exponentially within reach. First, let's talk about the economy your parents lived in. From roughly 1950 to the early 2000s, the American dream was very of families. College was very affordable. Buying a decent home cost around 2 to 3 times your annual income, not 8 to 10 times like it does for inexpensive. Good jobs are plentiful, often with pensions and full benefits, and companies rewarded tenure and experience, and they valued loyalty. Company pension, stayed out of major debt, and bought a modest home. You could maintain a really comfortable lifestyle, often raising a family on just one income. Not necessarily easy, but it was achievable. For context, in 1980, the average home price was around $47,000, while the median house was around $21,000. Compare that to today, and the difference is staggering. But starting in the late 90s and accelerating through the 2000s, housing prices exploded. The median home price has massively outpaced incomes, making it harder than ever for first-time buyers. Student loan debt levels. Healthcare costs soared. Job security collapsed. The idea of working at one company for 30 years is almost laughable now. Plus, once the backbone of retirement planning basically disappeared, replaced by 401ks where you're responsible for your own future. In short, the built their success on, it's either crumbling or it's gone. And yet, the financial advice many of us were given growing up hasn't really updated to match that. A lot of advice we followed came from a good place, but it nudged us off track. Let's break down the big pieces of that advice and why they just don't work the same. First up, get a good job with a pension. Back then, a pension was a golden ticket. If you worked hard for 30 years, your company would keep paying you for the rest. That kind of stability gave people a real shot at a secure retirement. But today, pensions are nearly extinct outside of government and union jobs. Workers are on their own with 401ks, if their employer offers one at all. And even then, the burden of saving and investing falls entirely on you. It means you can't rely on a job to take care of your future. You need to build your own financial safety net through aggressive saving, smart investing, and multiple. Next, buy a home as soon as you can. Homeownership was the ultimate wealth-building tool for boomers, but today, it's not so simple. Home prices, interest rates are volatile, and maintenance costs are much higher than people realize. Buying a home can absolutely still be a smart financial move, if enough, usually 7+ years, if you can afford a healthy down payment without draining your emergency fund, and if you're not stretching yourself so thin that you become renting isn't a failure anymore. In fact, renting smartly and investing the difference can often leave you wealthier than buying too early and getting buried in cost. People just don't stay in the same place anymore. It used to be common for a family to buy a home and raise their kids there and stay in the same place for their entire life. To buy a nice house right off the bat, so their first home was often large and nice enough to last them through many phases of life. Nowadays, it's a starter home, which is more akin to a shack, and then work your way up to a nicer home through various moves, while much of the profit is eaten up through realtor and Plus, with remote work options, people are much more likely to move around rather than stick around in the same place. Real estate can be expensive to buy, and it works out to hold it for many years rather than buying and selling frequently. And then there's the classic, stay loyal to a good company. Loyalty has rewarded it with steady raises, promotions, pensions, and paid time off. It was common to start out in an entry-level position, which by them compared to today's standards, and likely provided benefits such as insurance and ample vacation time, and work your way up the corporate ladder to a higher paying position. Loyalty can actually cost you tens of thousands of dollars over your career. People who switch jobs every 2 to 3 years tend to earn a lot more than those. Companies now pay new employees well to attract new talent, rather than retaining the same people for decades. So the new strategy is simple. Always be networking, and think like a freelancer even if you're working full-time. You are your own best safety net. Not to mention the fact that many didn't require college degrees. It was possible to get a high-paying job with no education after high school. Then there's the belief that going to college would set you. For previous generations, a college degree was a one-way ticket to a stable, well-paying career. Tuition was affordable, job markets were way less competitive, had a clear return on investment. Today, that promise is frayed. College costs have skyrocketed, while wages haven't, and many graduates are thousands of dollars in debt and no clear job path. The truth is, college can still be well worth it, but it has to be a strategic choice, not just a step. Choosing the right major, the right school, and considering trade schools or skipping college altogether are all valid paths now. Blindly college equals success formula can leave you financially stuck before you've even started. So if the old playbook doesn't work, what does? Let's talk about the new today. First, invest early and often. This is where people have a major advantage. advantage over their parents because it's basically free to begin, no barrier to entry, meaning you can invest with as little as $1 and no trading fees or large management fees like previous generations faced, which made it investors to get started. Thanks to compounding, investing a little bit at 25 beats investing a lot at 35. It's not about waiting until you have, it's about starting now, even with small amounts. Time beats timing every single time. Second, build multiple income streams. Key. Having freelance skills, side hustles, small businesses, investments, that's what builds real security today. Not because you have to, but because diversification gives you options. If you lose one income stream, it doesn't collapse your entire life. Extra income streams also to retire early, work on your own schedule, and often just have more flexibility. Third, rent smart, invest the difference. Homeownership builds wealth, but it's not the only way, and it's not always the best way, depending on your situation. If owning would leave you cash poor and stressed, renting might be blindly buying a house as soon as you can just doesn't make sense, especially if the cost to own is a lot higher than renting. You can still build wealth by investing elsewhere while maintaining flexibility. Fourth, flexibility beats loyalty. In today's economy, sticking with one company or career path often does more harm than good. Industries change, companies downsize, and job security is no longer tied to tenure. The people who nibble, those willing to pick up new skills when their field evolves, switch jobs for better pay or growth, or even completely reinvent their careers when the market. Loyalty to a company that no longer serves your interests is like staying on a sinking ship just because you helped build it. Finally, and most importantly, lifestyle. It's not just about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Every time you get a raise or bonus, it's tempting to immediately upgrade your lifestyle. Your apartment, fancier vacations. And it's even harder to resist now because we're constantly bombarded with social media posts showing friends, influencers living their best lives. The pressure to keep up is everywhere, and it's exhausting. But previous generations didn't really deal with that. Their comparison circle, neighbors, coworkers, maybe a few extended family members. Today, many of us are comparing our lives to a global highlight reel, often without even realizing what makes lifestyle creep so dangerous. It feels normal. But if you can build the discipline to save or invest a chunk of every raise, say 50%, you'll build wealth so much faster without feeling like you're constantly falling behind. It's important to remember that your parents meant well. If their advice no longer because they didn't care, it's because they didn't know. Most parents aren't financial experts. They just pass down what worked for them in a time when college guaranteed things affordable and one job could support a family. They couldn't predict how much things would change. Your parents weren't trying to mislead you. They were simply playing by, and now you have to play by a new set, one that's more challenging but offers greater rewards if you learn to navigate it. The game has changed, and the old advice doesn't fit today's reality. The good news is that now you have more tools and opportunities than any previous generation. You can invest with a business with minimal overhead and create income streams in ways our parents never imagined. It's not easy, it's not guaranteed, but it is possible.